Yes, it's nice to get back to Finland. I've been here many times, but I always go to Viramäki. And I must say it's a little bit more light here than Viramäki. But yes, I'm going to also think back to where I grew up in northern Ontario in Canada. And it's very similar to Finland. We have many lakes, many trees, lots of rocks, and also lots of Finnish people. So I grew up with lots of Mäkis and Peltomäkis, and the guy ran the corner store was Art Lauti, and we call him Arti Boika. So I learned Uksi Kuksi Kalamaneli and things like that. So that's the limit of my Finnish. But I always like to share, especially when it comes to Olympic Games, because I've been doing them since 1984 was my first one in Los Angeles, so it's 30 years, and every time I learned something. In Sochi recently, I went with 3 athletes, freestyle skiers, and they all came home with medals, which was 2 of them were gold and 1 was silver. But it was, I learned something there, I learned something in Vancouver, I learned something in Torino, and some of these athletes have now retired, and so they don't mind for me to tell you what we did. When they were competing, they didn't want to share, but now we actually do conferences together, and we talk about not only what I would say the mental preparation, but I make a difference between mental and emotional. That is, the mental is the thinking part, it's talking part, it's the focusing part, visualizing, but the emotional is being able to enjoy it, being able to savor it, embrace it, control your emotions, be calm, and all those things. So I'll make that distinction. So, but in terms of the common thing with all the athletes I've worked with, the first 3 Olympics I did were with the sailing team. And then I've done some with swimming and synchronized swimming and judo and now more freestyle skiing. But it's always a journey, and it's a 4-year journey. And that is one of the reasons that it's become so stressful and so meaningful for the athletes is they trained for 4 years, and my freestyle skiers in Sochi, they had 23 seconds or 21 seconds to come down the hill and do it right. So 4 years for 20 seconds is quite something. And so what we try to do is have them not think about outcome, think about performance, how you want to feel. So basically, when it starts out, each Olympic cycle, and today I'm going to talk about getting the athletes ready for the Olympics, and then tomorrow morning I'll talk more about what we do when we're actually there. But I'll kind of mix the two up also. But the mission is, what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to get on the podium. We're trying to win a gold medal. That's the objective, whether it's a team, whether it's an individual athlete. And I make a distinction between the mission and the vision. The mission is what we're trying to accomplish, and the vision is how we're going to do it, all the steps, the process, and what it's going to feel like when you're standing on top of the hill, looking down there at these 60 moguls and these 2 jumps. And so that's the vision. What's it? Not just what are you going to see, but what are you going to feel? And again, it's. Remember when Jen Heil won in Torino, and when I asked her after what she was saying on top of the hill, she was saying all the things that we talked about in terms of being in the moment, enjoying the moment. And then when she won, and she signed a poster for me, which I have at home, in my office at home, and she said, Wayne, thank you so much. She said, I was completely ready, and my belly was smiling. And to me, that indicates to me she got it. Completely ready is mental. Completely ready. I know exactly what to do. But my belly, I said, you can't be up there smiling like this, but in here, you can have this smile in your belly and say, watch this. Watch. And it's not being cocky or arrogant. It's having that smile and say, this is what I love to do. Even with Justine Dufour-Lapointe, who won in Sochi, another girl I worked with. She's up there and she's saying, I love to ski, I love to compete. Je vais danser avec ma ligne. I'm going to We speak French because that's where they are. And so, but being able to have those feelings about totally enjoying it, and not just being in the moment, but embracing the moment. So I think those are important things with that vision. And then it comes back to the passion, loving it. And sometimes I get questions asked, your athletes win a lot of medals, they must pay a big price. They must make a big sacrifice. And I say no, they don't. They make choices. They make an investment every day to get better. And they love what they're doing. Like the girls I'm working with now, Justine and Chloe de Fort-le-Point, just got back from 3 weeks in Zermatt. Before that, they were 3 weeks in Australia this summer. That's where there's snow. But again, they're not going to school. They're doing school by correspondence. It's not a sacrifice. It's a passion. They love it. And they're the best in the world, but they're trying to get better and better and better. So this little triangle becomes very, very meaningful. And so then in terms of I'm just going to quickly go through the whole support team thing which we have in Canada. And we've got some really good support, a lot of financial aid right now. And sometimes these things are good, and sometimes they aren't so good. So I'll explain both sides to it. But in terms of the Canadian Olympic Committee, that's the group in charge of the whole operation. That is the budget and coming from the government and all those kinds of things. And they establish the mission for the team. And then you have all the different national sport federations. And so they look after the selection of the athletes, and the next step is then forming an Olympic team. So it starts with the big group, with the CEO up there and the president and all the people. And then it goes to the federations and then down to the team. And every year, what we do with the Olympic team is we come up with themes for the team. And I'll get into that a little bit later. One of the other groups which has been more and more important since Vancouver, we were hosting the Olympics. And so the government decided, through the Canadian Olympic Committee, to form a new group called Own the Podium. And Own the Podium did some really good work, but what they did also is they came up with a lot of money, $120 million they put into the program to help the athletes have the best specialists, have the best training facilities, optimize everything they could do to get totally ready for Vancouver. So they wanted to get the most medals, and we did. We got 35, but we came second because it's the country that gets the most gold medals. But again, so it was very successful. But the problem with Own the Podium is when our athletes arrive in Vancouver, all they see are these big signs, Own the Podium, Own the Podium, Own the Podium. And Own the Podium is something which is in the future. And everything we're doing is to keep them in the moment. So what I did with my athletes, instead of having them focus on Own the Podium, I said, own the moment. Own the moment. And be in the moment. Be in the moment, savor that moment, enjoy that moment, but own that moment. It's your moment. And so again, sometimes they own the podium, with all the money. And of course, the Olympics, if you win a gold medal, or if you don't make the podium, there are consequences financially, sponsors and whatnot. So we try to get the emphasis away. Put a big X here. We're not going to think podium. We're going to think, how do you want to feel? How do you want to think? How do you want to focus? Because all of those things you can control. Okay, and so then also we have a mission team. Once the Olympic team is formed, there's a mission team which goes in, and they've already been to Korea a couple times in terms of doing all the logistics, the orientation, the travel, the clothing, all of the nutritional stuff, the lodging, all the things that have to be looked after, and we try to have the best situation for the athletes. This group here, there's two words that I use, or two themes that I like to use. This group here, what they do is they clear the path. Okay, they clear the path. So in other words, the athletes, once they've made the team, We set up a program for the parents. We get the parents there. The parents have Canadian clothing. The parents are looked after in terms of lodging. Like, all these things are to clear the path. And what we do as sports psychologists and mental performance consultants, we try to have them have a clear mind. So I make that difference. You have a clear mind, and then you have a clear path. You know, so there's no distractions. And part of that mission team is also the media. All of the interviews, for example, before Rio, which is coming up this summer, they were done last summer. Same thing with Sochi. All the interviews, all the profiles which go on TV, they're all done in advance. So that clears the path. And then we have a health science team. Now we're getting smaller in terms of how I fit in. A health science team with the doctors, with the physios, with the masseurs, and all the different people. And the mental performance consultants is what I do. We fit in with this group here. Okay, so again, we have integrated support teams, which also, in terms of the process, what they do is they look after, those are all the sports science people, all the biomechanics people, physiologists. We have a support team which works with the coaches and works with that athlete. And that group stays together for 4 years. And so what we try to do is get the best people that we can who can work together. And then we have people like myself who get to work with the athletes. I find too, more and more, and I'm not sure here in Finland if it's the same thing, but more and more, the perception now is I'm going to work with a sports psychologist not because I have problems, not because I have some things that I'm troubled with. I'm going to work with a sports psychologist or mental performance consultant because I want to learn those skills. I want to perform to my max. And so that whole perception seems to be, if I look back to 84, 30 years ago, and I look now, the athletes working with myself or my colleagues are saying, I get to work with Wayne, I get to work with him or her, and that gives me an edge. That helps me. That gives me an advantage. And so that whole thing about optimizing your performance, clearing your mind, being able to free it up, you know, and so, again, if I think back to Justine Dufour-Lapointe, and she's standing on top of the hill saying, Je vais danser avec ma ligne. Je vais danser avec ma ligne. You know, she's thinking about dancing. She's listening to Katy Perry with Roar, like a tiger. You know, and so, again, these are all things. She doesn't have problems. She's having fun. But again, we're working on the emotional side. We're giving her those skills. And it's almost like they go off to the Olympics not just with their clothing and their suitcases. They got a toolbox. They got a toolbox. They know their key words. They know how to focus. They know how to breathe. They know how to stay in the moment. So these things, and again, one thing I can say, the common thing, is we have a lot of fun. They look at me and they say, wow, Wayne's calm, he's smiling, and you know, so like, but we do a lot of things. We do, in terms of this integrated support team, have challenges. I remember at Vancouver, I was working with a figure skater, Joanie Rochette, and Joanie, she's probably top 5 in the world, and when her parents arrived on the Saturday night, her mother had a heart attack and died. And so we found out, they woke me up at 1:30 in the morning and told me, and I was rooming with the high performance director from figure skating. And so they woke us up and they told us, and you know, so we spent the whole night. And I said, well, we're not going to wake Joanie up. And she's rooming with Tessa Virtue, who has to skate that night, and we're not going to bother their sleep, and we can't do anything. Then I had to go out and get Manon Perron, find the coach who was staying with her husband. He just arrived from Montreal. Anyway, but things that we went through with Joanie, and I can explain some of that tomorrow's talk, to create a bubble around her, to have her have that clear mind. And that was a Sunday morning when we woke her up to tell her. And her short program was on the Tuesday night. So 48 hours, and I'll show you the clip. There's Joanie and we did a thing on TV after she retired to talk about that, but how the support team helped her get through. and what she did in terms of being able to be focused. And one thing I can always remember in terms of giving an athlete perspective, like after she had visited the hospital and seen her mother's body, and we're going back to the hotel or to the village, Manon Perron said to her, "You don't have to make a decision today if you're going to skate." And she said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for my mom." Because that's what she would want. And I said right away, and I don't have training for this. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but my common sense said, I said, "Joanie, you not only skate for your mom, you'll skate with your mom. She'll be there every step, every spin, every jump." And so at the end of every skate, she'd say, "Merci, Mama." You know, so tomorrow I'll show you that little clip with Joanie talking about some of the things that we did. So those are basically the team behind. And so what that team, and again, I like to, when I teach my students at the university, I like to work on 3 C's. First one I said, think conceptually. And conceptually with little models and whatnot, and being able to differentiate between the past, the present, and the future. But conceptual things, but also think critically. In terms of what you read and what you hear, don't just accept it. Study it, analyze it. And then the final is think creatively. And this to me is a bit of creativity. I came up with it because I work a lot with our hockey teams too. And in terms of getting guys to work together. And people say there's no I in team. There's no letter I in team. And I totally disagree. I said there's a lot of I's in the team. In our support team, our integrated support team, our mission team, our Olympic team, we're a team. And there's a lot of I's there. But if these people are going to work together, they can form a team. You know, so if you take 2 I's, one I working with another, it becomes a T. Then you take another I, this could be a doctor, and then you give them 3 masseurs or other people working, you get an E. You know, so all these I's, and it helps people to kind of bury their egos. Put your ego in your back pocket. So again, you take 2 more I's. Sometimes we do this with teams who, in a team building, I think we do it in the snow, and they lie in the snow, and then we take pictures from up above and stuff. But again, now hey, if you got a little short person on your team, you put them right there. You put them right there, the little wee ones, the little short guys or girls. And then, of course, you got 2. See, there's 2 more I's. What do those I's do? They work with 2 others. Or they work with some flexible person now, and they make an M. So again, that's just a concept which I did a presentation to our Olympic team before London. We brought together all of the support team, all of the doctors, all of the travel people, all the media people, and we talked about how can we create the best environment. And so the title of my presentation was Clear the Path. Clear the path. How can we clear the path? And this is one of the things we talked about. Being able to clear the path and everybody working together. Working together. When they come into the sports medicine clinic, when they meet people, we're smiling, we're positive, we're professional, and we're always in the background. Always in the background. The athletes are out front. Okay, just to give you an example. Here's a gal I did Torino and Vancouver with Jen Heil. She's a freestyle skier. And we had our little team all around her. So she had her personal trainer, Scott Livingston. He did her physical training. And they personalized, like she did Salt Lake too. And she came 4th in Salt Lake as an 18-year-old. And then she came to Montreal to go to university, to McGill. And this team was formed. And so she had a personal trainer. She had her ski coach who did the technical. This person did the physical, this person did the technical. And then there was an exercise physiologist who did all of the cardio stuff and all that sort of thing. And then we had the athletic therapist who also was an osteopath, which turned out to be really, really important. Because Jen, I remember when I got to Torino, she was having some trouble with one of her glutes, and she was having trouble with her range of motion, And Dave and I went over, Dave Campbell, the osteopath, and he worked on her there. And the physios have been working right here on her glute. Turned out it was something up in her shoulder. He loosened her up. All of a sudden, whoof, now I'm ready to go. You know, so again, this team worked very, very closely. Then it was me, the sports psych guy. Then she had an agent who brought us all together and looked after all of her stuff if she has to do stuff with the media and all the rest, and then nutritionists. So these would be some of the people who would be working together very, very closely with this athlete. Again, you know, to make things visual and concrete and to be a little bit creative, I've formed this confidence table. You know, and then part of the process, getting the athlete ready for the Olympics, so they can say, I'm completely ready. I know I'm ready. We start with this confidence table. And what I did was I formed a confidence table with 4 legs on it. And some of those people you saw in the previous slide, you know, you had a person here looking after her fitness. You got the fitness being looked after. You got the technical stuff being looked after. And then you got the tactical. Tactical in a team sport, offensive, defensive. But tactical in some sports is how you're going to approach things, whether you're in terms of a build-up, all those things. But you know what? These 3 legs, it's been my experience, these 3 legs can be really, really strong. The athlete gets to the Olympics. If this leg here is a little bit thin, or it's a little bit short, and then the pressure and the expectations to do well in that 23 seconds, if that pressure is pushing on that table, the table is going to come down because this leg is not strong enough. So what we do is we work with the athletes, and then we give them skills. How to talk to yourself. Going to training, for example, instead of saying, I've got to go to training, or I have to go to training. And then being on the creative side, I take the word I've got to, I change the letter O to an E, and it becomes I get to. You know, it's small little things. Or if there's, instead of saying before a competition, I hope I have a good run, I hope I have a good day on the hill, I hope I don't mess up, or I've got to have a good day, or I'd better, or I have to. What we do is we make them aware of the way they're talking to themselves. So the I have to, I'd better, I've got to, I hope, we get rid of them. And we replace them with I know. And tomorrow you'll hear Joanie Rochette talking about her I know list, how we put together. And I started using that in 2006 with Jen Heil, doing an I know list with 10 things like I know I'm fit, I know I'm healthy, I know I've had great training, I know we had a great support team, I know my key words, I know. And when she won, she came down, she had a great run, and she won. And after the media stuff, I saw her, and I said, did you use your I know list on top of the hill? She went in her pocket like this. She reached in her pocket, pulled it out. She says, Wayne, it was in my pocket. And then Justine and Chloe in Sochi, same kind of thing, I know list. And when we hugged after they won their medals, in their pocket, in their sleeve, they got their I know list. Because that stuff's not bullshit. It's facts. You know, and so you arm the athlete with these facts. And those facts, what they're going to do, they're going to make this mental leg really strong. And on the back side of the mental leg is the emotional part, which is equally as important. So these, again, you know, when athletes come to see me at the university, they all want to talk about confidence. But I've also added another word here, which I don't have on this slide, but it's consistency. Being consistent, not just being confident. This is like bringing your A game. Being consistent, bring it all the time. Bring it all the time. Okay, so our mission, okay, in terms of that whole support team I just talked about, everybody's work to help our athletes, or to provide an athlete, gives them a clear mind and a clear path. Okay, so like, in other words, sometimes athletes worry about their parents. It's a distraction. Do they have tickets? Is everything okay? Or sometimes they're worried about other things which they can't control, but what we do, we try to clear it We don't need any trees falling out in front of them along the way to bring their best. And that's a little concept which I really like to use. And I've got a quote in there somewhere from our chef de mission, Steve Podborski. He's a former skier. He'd done many world championships, and he was our chef de mission. When he addressed the team in Vancouver, I think it was about a few months before Sochi, I think it was in December actually, and he said, when you go to the Olympics, what you want to do is be the best you are. You know, so bring your best. You're already good. Let that come out. And that's what I find is the challenge. Building the athlete up so they can get there and they can free it up. They can be totally confident and they feel they're not like this, they're not tight and like this. So again, be the best you are, or bring your best. Okay, the Olympic mindset. Well, that's the one I just mentioned now. Be the best you are. You're already good. I remember sitting beside one of my athletes when Steve said that, and I wrote it out. I said, Justin, I said, that's exactly the way you want to feel. You're already good. What you want to do, look down that hill and say, here we go. Watch this. You know, so again, these are pretty basic, fundamental things. But if you have a structure and you have a model like a confidence table, and I think it was Leonardo da Vinci said the language of images is more important than words. So I use a lot of images. I use a lot of circles. I use a lot of triangles. I use the table is an image. So I hope that you can, when you're looking at this whole thing, you're saying, okay, how can I have my athlete think about these things in a visual, concrete way? And as I say, that was just before 14. Okay, so as we move on here, and I'm going to show you a couple of clips in terms of what we do. Key concepts: clear mind, clear path. That's the first big one. Next one is control the controllables. Again, I like to use acronyms, or I like to make things sticky. So I use, sometimes I take the first letter, CTC. And sometimes I remember way back working with the sailors, they would put CTC on their boats, the three-letter CTC. Because in sailing, you can't control the wind, you can't control the waves, you can't control a whole bunch of things, but you can control many things. So we do that with every athlete. What can I control and what can't you control? In Sochi, for example, we knew going in, we knew that the finals in freestyle skiing were going to be at 11:30 at night for television back home. Usually, qualifications in freestyle skiing is at 1 o'clock. The finals are around 3 o'clock, or they're at 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever. Usually they're just a few hours apart in the daytime. Once in a while you get it afternoon, like in Deer Valley in the States, and then finals at night. But you don't get it near midnight. But that's something we knew, but you can't control it. So we trained. They trained in the evening. You know, we trained that. What do you do between qualies and finals and semifinals? We had a plan, you know, in terms of that. So you take all the things that you can't control, and you make a list of them, and then you say, what can I control? The way I think, the way I focus, the way I breathe, my body language. Am I walking around like this, or am I walking like this? Here we go. And again, I remember with Joni Rochette, the key words we came up with were stand tall. She's only 5'2". On figure skates, she's 5'5". But when she would come out of the dressing room, she wouldn't be coming out like this. She'd be like this. And she'd get on the ice, and the music would start. She'd take a deep breath. So she had no tension in her body, but it was all about standing tall. Standing tall. Even with my skiers, we talk about it in terms of their upper body, in terms of projecting this confidence and having the shoulders back, chest out, you know, stuff like that. Like, and it's funny when you work in two languages, like I'm English, but I teach in French at the University of Montreal. I learned my French in Switzerland when I played professional hockey, so I'm lucky that I can work in two languages. But in terms of working with the skiers, We talk about not just having a proud chest, but a chest fier, like this, and shoulders back. So again, you want to focus on things. Body language, yeah, under control, check. Breathing, under control. Keywords, check. Boom. So the other thing is, how do you deal with the pressure? And one of the things that I've learned from one of the hockey coaches I work with, he said, don't feel the pressure. Don't get tight and feel the pressure and squeeze your stick or not. Apply the pressure. Apply the pressure. Like in basketball, they talk about full court press. What do? You go after the person, you put pressure on them, take away their time, take away their space. So we do the same thing. Like with my skiers, we say, you're going to go faster, you're going to go higher. See if they can catch me. One of the alpine skiers on our alpine ski team, she's got on the back of her helmet, catch me if you can. Catch me if you can. You know, in other words, I'm going fast. You know, I'm going to. So again, these are pretty basic concepts. But it also, here's another image, which again is kind of a simple little image, but it's the doctoral training. If you had, what I had was training in interactionist. What it means is all the athletes I work with, they're different. But they're all people, they have personalities, they have motives, they have different ways of approaching things, so you look at each person individually. All the sports I've mentioned, from sailing, through judo, through figure skating, now I'm working with a couple of speed skaters, there's a task, and that task has demands. You know, so when the skiers are coming down the hill, they got to be really, really intense and attack the moguls, boom, 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 and then they got to go off a jump, float like that in the air, land, boom, tight, direct, boom, 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 relax again. But again, what you do is you get to know, as a sports psychologist, what are the task demands? How can I help the person? And then you get to know what's the situation. Situation, as I mentioned in Sochi, was the finals are going to be at 11:30 at night. That's a situational factor. We were in Sochi in 2013 for a pre-Olympic event, competition. It was 15 degrees Celsius on the hill. 15. The skiers are coming down in T-shirts and slush, heavy, heavy slush. They're landing their jumps and their skis are going in the snow and they're falling and they're rolling. So what we did, we went and trained on that. We went and found that snow in the summertime. And they simulated it. But also they skied on ice, they skied in wind, they skied in rain. In Vancouver, it was foggy, it was raining, but we skied in it. So all these situational things. So again, it's kind of a conceptual way of looking, not just at the person, not just at what they're doing, but all the things, even the family situation, there's many things to be looked at. Okay, again, what can you control? There's your CTC. Your thoughts. What are you saying to yourself? I've got to, I hope, I better, all that kind of stuff. Do you have your keywords? That's all, like psychologists call that the cognitive part. I remember when I heard that word when I was doing my master's, the cognitive. I said, as athletes, we don't know what cognitions are. Coaches don't know what cognitions are. They know what thoughts are. They know what feelings are. So same thing. So here, focus. Being in the moment, being totally engaged, learning to be in the moment. That's a thing that you can control. It's getting into your bubble, getting into your zone, so you can block everything out. It's a controllable. Making good decisions, making good choices. You know, in terms of going to training, being proactive. What am I going to work on today? You know, making those choices, eating well, hydrating well, sleeping well, all those things that they're choices. And that's why this word here, when they asked me about my athletes, do they make a sacrifice? Do they pay a price and all that? I said, no, they make good decisions. I have I don't have the slide here with me, but sometimes I use what I call the 4 Ds. The 4 Ds. Daily decisions determine destiny. Daily. My friend Peter Jensen, he works with our teams too. He does a lot of motivational corporate speaking, and he says, Wayne, I use the 4 Ds all the time. I steal that from you, the 4 Ds. Daily decisions determine destiny. In other words, what you do every day, the choices you make, being proactive, and not always just being reactive, being proactive, looking ahead. What can I do? Like with my 2 skiers right now, Justin and Chloe, what they're trying to do, they're already the best in the world. They're first and second in the world. They're trying to create a gap. They want to keep getting better and better. They want to ski like guys. They want to be able to go faster. They want to go higher. So again, they're being proactive. They're not looking back and saying, who's trying to catch us? We're going ahead. Okay? And again, emotions. Enjoying the moment. Savoring the moment. Embracing the moment. Being calm. Being composed. Those are things, emotional control, emotional management. Psychologists call it self-management. Managing these things, your thoughts, your focus, all these things. And again, your work ethic. Work ethic. It's something that can be controlled. I love there's a good book. It's called Raising a Team Player. Raising a Team Player by Tim Sheehy. But in that book, he talks about building teams. And he said, the first chapter is called work ethic. The last chapter is called humility. But in terms of work ethic, he says, work ethic is a skill. It is a skill, and you can control it. So if every day you bring quality, and you bring purpose, and you bring focus to your training, you're going to get that edge. And this is where we help the athletes setting goals. Don't just set goals about outcome. Set daily goals in practice. And then body language, the positive, the confident, all that sort of thing. You know, again, the athlete can control it. You know, so once you start to equip them with these things, you say, wow, I can't control this, I can't control that, what the media is saying, what the weather's going to be, but I can control all these things. And I'm going to totally enjoy this. Energy. And again, thinking conceptually. People always talk about physical energy. But I know for athletes and coaches, the mental energy, being sharp, being alert, being there, being engaged. The emotional energy, and enjoying something, not feeling like this, getting run down. But again, that's another thing that can be controlled. You know, so again, these are things which, again, we feel, and again, I come back to this use of things. Again, people say, you know, when you work with athletes, what do you do? And I say, I try to give them tools which are simple, which are tangible, concrete, but sticky, that are really sticky. And hopefully some of these things are sticking. Okay, again, going to the creative side a little bit and the conceptual side. You know, in terms of the Olympics, if you go into the Olympics, Summer Olympics are different than winter. I find summer are so big. I mean, you got 12,000 athletes, you got all these people there. The winter, it's almost like they're intimate, if you will. I remember being in Sochi, we had athletes in the main village. We were halfway up the mountain, and the aerobic people were way up top of the mountain. But again, there's climate control, which we talk about in a way. So I make a distinction between the external climate, what's going on with the weather, but what's going on inside you? Your internal climate. Okay, are you focused? Are you calm? Are you composed? Are you all these things here? Are you excited? Excited about going to it? Or are you afraid? So again, we say, we can't do anything about the external climate, you know, in terms of the weather. We can in terms of our support team. When they go into the sports medicine clinic, the doctors that are working there, the other support team, the exercise physiologists, the masseurs, all these people, they're part of the external climate. So what we do, we work on things physically, socially, emotionally with the support team. And what we started doing, I think it was might have been in Torino with the Winter Olympics. Like within we have a big Olympic team. We have a lot of athletes, so we usually get a building. So within our building, we set up a wellness center. And that's one of our doctors suggested. It's a wellness center. So it's a place the athletes can go at night. And there's quiet music. And they can go in, they can do their meditation, their yoga. There's candles in there, and they can just decompress. So again, that's something physically. Socially, we work hard on preparing our support staff to act in the right way, to be in the right way, to look after their own needs at the Olympics. And then you got the emotional, the whole team enjoying it. So in other words, we try to come up with a team identity. So we see as a support team, when the athletes see us, what do they see? What do they feel? And then what do they say? Instead they say, wow, looks like everybody here is really, they're excited to be here, they're enjoying it. But sometimes you get into little conflicts. Somebody doesn't want to work a shift here, they want to go see an event there. So we try to look after those things in advance. So when I spoke to the entire Olympic team, I came up with this concept, of the internal and external climate. But I said, when you go to the Olympics, because of all the money the government's put in on the podium, there's pressure. And that pressure, it can make the thermometer go higher and higher and higher, so people start to get stressed and whatnot. I said, no. Instead of looking at it as a thermometer, look at the whole situation as a thermostat. So a thermostat here, if I want to have the temperature at 60, whatever it is, 25 degrees, 23 degrees, I go and I push it. I push a button. So I think this concept here gives control. Instead of everybody getting uptight, athletes, coaches, support staff, think of you like a thermostat. And now you're in control. You're calm, you're composed. Okay, this is another thing here. Just before I give you a couple of little clips here. Making the athletes or helping the athletes to be accountable. Okay, be accountable and not point fingers at other things, not make excuses. No excuses, no regrets. And these are things that they're things which we talk a lot about. In other words, some of the things can go wrong on the way. In terms of there could be bus breakdowns. I remember in Vancouver, I was working with, again, some skiers, and Jen Heil was one of them. And 2 days in a row, her bus broke down going up to the ski hill, up to Cyprus. And in terms of what we said, okay, like we all said, okay, what are we going to do? So we were able, because we were hosting the Olympics, we were able to get private transportation, and we got her up there. So I would go up with her coach. We just stayed totally in the solution. But I find, and again, I learned this from a coach. He said, anytime athletes are making excuses, for whatever it is, it could be a hockey player not being on the power play, it could be some other teams doing certain things which we're not doing. He said, instead of pointing fingers, this guy said, every time you point a finger at something, organizing committee, weather, all that, he said, look at how many fingers are pointing back at you. 3. So what I've done, I gave them names. I gave them here names. Instead of that one, instead of looking at the excuses, what can I control? Number 1, how hard am I working? What am I doing every day to get better? Number 2, execution. With my skiers, it's how well they're going through the moguls, how well they're jumping. If it's a hockey player, am I putting pucks on the tape? Am I moving my feet? Like all these kinds of things. And then probably the most important is the emotion, bringing emotion. So again, if you can point out to an athlete, they say, you're making a lot of excuses. How many fingers are pointing back at you? What are you doing about these 3 here? And I find that it becomes very effective. Okay, just to kind of sum up here, this was like the theme going into Vancouver. Own the podium. À nous le podium. That's what our athletes heard about. That's what they saw everywhere. So I said to my athletes I was working with, I said, are you going to focus on results, outcome, and future? Okay, which is owning the podium, which is what the government and everybody wants you to hear. Or are you going to own the moment? Totally different perspective. Totally different way of looking at it. If you own the moment, that means you go out, you perform, you execute, You're in control, and you're totally, totally in the present, totally in the moment. So again, you know, like getting away from this own the podium, because the podium is in the future. Own the moment. Like here's Alex Bilodeau. That was his second Olympics. I was with him in Sochi. As an 18-year-old, he finished 11th. He just made the team late, so we didn't get a chance to work much on the mental stuff. And he was skiing really well, but it was his first Olympics in Torino, and he came 11th. Going to Vancouver, he was number 1 in the world. He was expected to win, and he did. And then when we went into Sochi, everybody was saying, will Alex defend his gold medal? Will Alex be able to repeat? I said, Alex, they don't exist. They don't exist. You don't repeat, you don't defend, you keep getting better. You go out and you perform. And so then, but when we were in Vancouver, I mean, there were big pictures of him on the walls of buildings and stuff. And so when we went through our triangle, we kept talking about the triangle. We said, okay, and Alex was the one that pointed this out. He said, Wayne, you talk about the physical all the time being the foundation. He said, you know, you should look at it, we should put the fitness over here. That's all the stuff, he says, I do with Scott Livingston. That's all my strength, my cardio, all that. But he said, and here's the stuff I do with Dom, my coach. Or it was Michel Amelin going into Sochi. So this is the whole technical package. This is the whole fitness package, but those things don't come out. They don't come out unless the athlete has the mental skills and they also have the emotional. Like, look at this is downtown Vancouver. Here's a bus. Here's a car. Look at the size of the car and the people. Look at the size of Alex. We're walking downtown and people are saying, just enjoy it. And you got own the podium. You got his picture on the wall. So what we did, and again, something you couldn't control, there was no snow. They had to bring it in by helicopter. They had to bring it in by truck. And they had to make the hill. But this is the task that he had, and Jennifer had, come down that hill in the fastest time, despite the fact it was rain and stuff. And again, here's all the crowd, all the expectations, people expecting Alex to win a gold medal. And what happened was, he did. He won a gold medal. Okay, but in terms of the way that he was, one of the parts of him being able to it was he knew exactly how he wanted to think. And I like this little quote here. You know, what he said after he won his medal. And it goes with the preparation. On top, I had no regrets. No regrets. On what I've done in the last 4 years, I said, I'm ready. Now that's mental. The most ready I've ever been, so let's just let it happen, let it go. There's nothing more I can do. What will happen will happen. I went out, I knew what to do. My key words were in my head. So when I read that, I said, that's a pretty good way to think. And we went through a lot of things to help him to be able to think like that. You know, so here was us, somebody took a picture of Alex and me. I think it was Joe and E took the picture. This is the morning of his race, Sunday morning. Jennifer Heil went Saturday night, and she skied better than she did in Torino, where she won a gold. The girl from the States, Hannah Kearney, skied better, beat her. She came second. Now Alex has a chance the next day to make history, to be the first Canadian athlete to ever win a gold medal when we're hosting. So he called me up at the ski hill after he saw Jen's run, and he said, can we get together in the morning? I said, sure. We're in the cafeteria. Here we are. And the reason his thumb is up, and I'll finish in 2 minutes, exactly, it's called being in the moment, being connected. And but the reason he's laughing is that we came out, I said to him, what's the last thing you're going to say to yourself when you're on top of the hill? He said, no regrets, just go. No regrets, just go. So I said, Alex, I said, I like the no regrets. Well, first of all, I had him explain to me. I said, it's a little bit negative. He said, Wayne, I've done everything possible. You know the confidence table? physically, tactically, mentally, I'm totally ready. I have no regrets. Just go. I said, you've got the mental down, no regrets. That's what you're saying to yourself. And you've got the physical down. Just go. I said, we need something for the emotional side. So he kind of closed his eyes, and he's looking up like that. He says, I know what I'll say. He said, I'll say to myself, no regrets, fuck it, just go. But when he came out with those two words, needs a French guy speaking English, fuck it, just go. But what that does, that just frees him up. Fuck it, just. And so, but he wouldn't tell anybody when he did his interviews what he was thinking. But when he won in Sochi, he won again. And he said, it's kind of bad language, but what I said to myself is, boom, fuck it, just go. But again, that was him freeing up. Okay, so what I'll do here, well, here, this is what he signed on the poster he gave me after the Olympics. Thanks for all your good work and efforts. We did it. Fuck it, just go. You know, so again, they don't teach you this in grad school. This is him in Sochi. I'll just show you him coming down the hill in Vancouver, so you get an idea. See, right here, that's the first one.
This is your Olympic update.
He's been waiting 4 long years for about 23 seconds, and it's time for Alex Bilodeau to shine.
I'll tell you about the emotional side in a little bit. He has a brother who has cerebral palsy. Big motivational part.
Vincent Marquis of Canada is third. Alex Bilodeau wants to sweep them all aside.
Here's the back double full. Nails it. Now Bilodeau not only is going to have to do great air, he's going to have to be at least.
You have no idea how fast they're going. It's faster when you're standing there.
Here he comes across the line. Time 23.17. The board reads number 1. He is on top of the leaderboard with 1 more to go.
There's his brother. His brother's in a wheelchair, cerebral palsy. He stands up. And so Alex applied. Here's the next guy, the last guy to go. This guy's feeling pressure from France.
Off axis 720 off the top. Kola is going for it. Look at how fast he is skiing now. He does not have this degree of difficulty on his jump, so he's going to have to make up for it in speed. Whoa! And that's it. I think that's it.
He missed that bottom jump. He's supposed to grab his ski, and he totally missed it. He was going so fast.
A decent run, no question there. Since 1976, this country has waited for a gold medal to be won by a Canadian. And Alex Bilodeau has done it! He has done it! He has
But she tries to console him here. This guy, he ended up finishing fourth, didn't even get a medal.
Check ctbolympics.ca for all the latest news.
Okay, Sarah, thanks for your patience. Not only is Sarah a good hostess, she picked me up at the airport, but she's really good in terms of organizing everything. But and Kara's probably pretty patient, saying, "Is he ever going to finish up there?" You know, when I teach at the university, our classes are all 3 hours long, and so when you teach, first hours you go an hour and a half, then a break, and all of a sudden you start holy jumping, it's an hour and a half's gone by. So I used 15 minutes from the director, I guess, and. But tomorrow what I'm going to do, I'm going to go more into detail in terms of what we actually do on site, you know, in terms of like, I can talk specifically, show you the clip from Joanie and what she did and how she was thinking, handling that tragedy in her life. Also going into Sochi with Alex, all the pressure to defend or repeat, which he didn't do. He didn't think those things. He went and he totally nailed it. But hopefully some of these things will stick, and then we'll pass it on to Kira. So thank you very much.